Welcome back to another Mountain Locker episode on the Tactical Alpinism podcast. My name is Maury, and in the Mountain Locker episodes, we are talking about different pieces of equipment that enable your ability to get after certain activities in the mountains. This topic for today is about ice axes and ice tools, and Silas Rossi, an IFMGA guide and member of the AMGA instructor team, is returning to talk about his preferences and choices around ice tools and ice axes for different activities, from ice climbing to mountaineering and sort of the whole spectrum in between. This is the second episode on the podcast that is also releasing with video, and it's a good one if you want to watch on the video to do so, because there are a few points where Silas and I do a little bit of like quote unquote show and tell, where we actually point out different pieces of the tools and axes that we are talking about. Not necessarily you still get the vast majority of the information from listening, but that could be a nice addition if you want to see the visual portions as we're talking through these different pieces of equipment. That's all I got for the intro portion, other than one ask, which is if you like this episode or you like others and you've been listening for a while, or it's your first time listening, the one thing I ask is that you share this episode with at least one person. Sharing is absolutely, and word of mouth is absolutely the way that this podcast grows and gets in front of the right people who find it useful and interesting. So please share it if you like what you're hearing. That's all I got, and I'll see you on the backside.
She has like a gazillion of them.
Yeah. Do you use a microphone?
Yeah, I guess that's
yeah. I have one set of headphones where it's a microphone with them that I use for traveling, but
Nice.
it doesn't come across as loud, so I don't use it most of the time. Whereas
Yeah.
actually, do you know Chad Fody at all?
Yeah.
So he actually gave me this mic years ago, and I told him I was interested in a podcast.
That's awesome. Nice. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he's good people. He's one of my oldest climbing partners.
Oh, right on.
Because we ran into each other bouldering on the carriage road.
Nice. That's awesome.
And he was like, yeah, that's the only day I was bouldering on the carriage road in probably a decade.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. Right on. So we're going to dive into ice axes and ice tools. And I'm not going to ask for a story on this one unless you have a good ice axe or tool story you want to share. But the goal for this discussion is to differentiate between tools for like ice climbing versus mountaineering versus like lighter weight things where you might not use it as much.
Totally.
And so I'll break out the categories to start. And so we have our technical ice tools, which are going to be really curved. They're going to have a separate handle oftentimes. Then we'll get into like hybrid or mountain tools, where they're going to have generally a continuous shaft so that they could be plunged into the snow a little bit better than a separate handle. They might be called mountain tools. And they're generally designed for alpine climbing, where you'll have some walking across snow and some climbing. And we'll have our mountaineering axes, which are the classic ones you see on like the door of REI as you go to walk in, where it's straight or like minimally bent shaft. Then the fourth category that I'll talk is ultralight tools and or axes, and like sort of where those are added in and what some of the trade-offs are of all these.
Great. Sounds awesome. I pulled out some examples here of like one or two of each of those categories, actually. So
actually, you can see mine over my shoulder here as well.
Nice. Yeah.
I was looking for my technical tools. I was using them for hanging on the pull-up bar. So that's why I couldn't find them.
That's awesome.
Cool. So let's first talk sort of like shaft curvature and how the shaft angle and or curve affects. Actually, before we even do that, let's just talk technical ice tools versus a straight ice tool and like why you go with curved.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's kind of two pieces, right? There's like the actual like shaft and handle piece. So shaft, handle, spike, and then you have the actual pick up here and the whole head. Obviously, these are designed to hang off of, right? So this is the same tool with a different, more drastically drooped handle. So it's more horizontal and a bit more squared off, better for just hanging on like overhanging stuff. And then also There's less of a shift when you actually choke up and shift here. There's not much of a shift in the head. So dry tooling, kind of mixed, really steep ice climbing, more just like kind of overall ice climbing, and then you move into a situation like this where it's less curved and a straight spike down here that is plungeable. This even like tilts over here to like really be able to go into the snow, so you can walk in like a Pele Con position, but still has a recurve pick and can still climb ice pretty well. Then you go one step further and you have a straighter shaft with a similar spike, but a totally movable little pinky rest there, so you can really plunge it into the snow well now. And this is still the same modular head that you can put that same pick on, a recurve pick, but a pretty good mountaineering axe. And then it goes even shorter and lighter. And this axe still has a recurve pick. You can actually still climb some neve or low angle ice with it.
Yep.
Has a pommel here, and it's just lighter weight and doesn't have like quite as stylish a spike to like really plunge that into the snow. So these are basically.
And for people that aren't watching the video, Silas started with holding up the ergonomic and the Nomic from Petzl. Then he went to the Quark for the mountain axe and the Sumtech, I believe it is. The starting to get a little bit less aggressive before he talked or went to the Gully, which is the lightweight axe with the key difference of the Gully is it does not have a removable head.
Yeah, and it's still right. The pick is there forever. It's permanent, and it's still a recurve pick to some extent. So I don't have the classic mountain POA here. I have one in the closet, but to be honest, I don't carry one as much anymore because of what I'm trying to do with them. Right. So this lightweight version is like either my ski axe. I have a lighter, like whatever they call it, with a regular classic pick on it. It's the same ice shaft. It's very light, very short. Really great tool for ski mountaineering. Might have an adze on here instead of a little hammer. Ski mountaineering or summer rock climbing, right? You're crossing a little bit of snow patch or a little bit of ice or something with crampons and an axe, or maybe just an axe. This is a great tool for something like the Matterhorn, where you're on rock down low, ice and snow up high, where you got to carry it all day. It's short, it goes inside your backpack, which is really nice if you're climbing without using it. And that can be, like I said, like alpine style or ski mountaineering sort of style, right? But if you're actually going to swing this thing into ice, or in my case, short rope somebody else and have to plunge this into the snow all day, I'm going to want something a little bit beefier that has a better spike and more plungeability, and a little bit taller because I'm actually using it like a cane, right? So this is what do we call this? The Sumtech. It's got an interchangeable hammer or an adze. You can put any variety of picks on here. I think they're all recurve picks now, but it's still pretty short. I think it's like 52 centimeters or something. So it's not a long axe that gets in the way of stuff. And generally, I think people choose axes that are too long for alpine climbing. Just get something short. Like basically, if you're 6'2" or less, you don't really need something like this. So a shorter axe paired with a ski pole for stability walking across lower angle terrain is probably going to be a better combo. And a ski pole that is like a trifold pole, like a tent pole style, that is short enough to still go in your backpack. Like getting everything in your pack is paramount, right? So those are kind of like my summer and like high summer, high winter stuff, skiing or alpine climbing in the summer. And then you have like this, what's it called? The Quark, that kind of does a little bit of everything. You could use this tool in some of the same ways because it is short. You still go in your backpack. It's kind of heavy for that. It's pretty robust, but it still short ropes pretty well. And it does have that recurve pick that's replaceable. You can put a pick weight on it or not. You can have a hammer or an adze, all those kind of the variability there.
Yeah, and I'm holding up on my screen. You have the additional pommel if you want it for ice climbing too.
Yep, totally. So all those are good options I basically have those three axes, for example, in Chamonix all summer, right? A Quark, a Sumtech, and that little Gully. And then I'll choose one of them, or I can use two of them, right? Like if I'm going to do some big alpine route, I might choose two of them. Like this could be a really nice combo for climbing some pretty big alpine routes. Or just
using the really lightweight Gully, in this case using Petzl's, and the Quark, which is a heavier but better climbing tool.
Totally. Yep. So good security, still good climbability. And just having two tools is such a huge advantage, right? If you're on steep snow or low angle ice, over having one, you could carry two light tools and be more psyched than just one real heavy tool, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yep. So that's a good thing to think about. The one thing that I don't have here is that classic kind of normal curve pick. And that does do a better job self-arresting. It
Yep.
bites into the snow more gradually. So if you're going to self-arrest with a recurve pick in the right snow type, it's just going to get ripped out of your hand and you've got no chance of self-arresting. So, better for climbing, but less good for like pure snow.
Yeah. Which brings us back to like what you like to say about no fall, no problem, where
Totally.
it's like that it's your backup. It's like having a car seatbelt in the car. And that's how I describe self-arresting. It's like, it's the oh shit scenario. It's not what you're
Yes.
planning to do, even though it's the thing we start mountaineering training with every time, it feels
For
like.
sure. Yeah, for sure. And the Sumtech's kind of in the middle of all those. You could put a hammer or an adze on. Sometimes I might use a Quark with a hammer and then a Sumtech with an adze. They both serve different tools, obviously. Like being able to dig a T-trench, like in a crevasse rescue scenario with an adze, is pretty darn helpful. But then again, so is being able to hammer a piton, right? So, having one of each is pretty useful at times, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just one we didn't cover because you had all Petzl ones,
Yeah.
and I do really like this Black Diamond tool because it's a lightweight tool like the Gully is, but it has a replaceable pick if you needed it. It
Yep.
has a steel hammer that you can permanently affix if you want to, and it has enough of an edge on the hammer that you can use it like a light adze
Nice.
as
Wow.
well, still with the pommel, and then it has a steel spike on the bottom that's closed, so it plunges just a little better. And then my favorite feature for when I'm being lazy and going lighter is it actually has this pin, so it can be a shax, so I can use a shovel with it.
Nice. That's awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah, perfect.
that tool is fairly new, but I do really like that one as sort of my all around like summer mountaineering if I'm bringing a pole.
Totally. It's just, any of this stuff comes down to like, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? And so, different terrain, different altitudes, different seasons, different partners all create a scenario where it's like different problems come to the top of the priority list that you'll have to solve, right? So if I might focus on this priority and kind of have this one take a back seat in certain scenarios, and that will dictate my tool choice, right? Yeah, I've did a whole thing. People can find the webinar about the Euromap framework. Yep. And I think tools are like the last thing that's based on everything else you've done so far to build that base of knowledge. It's an important step, but I think the tools really are, you figure them out by everything else you've done in preparation so far.
Yeah, and so for a few questions for people that could take and apply if they're looking to get into ice climbing or pick a tool, for pure ice climbing, would you start with a Nomic or Hydra being the Black Diamond version, or would you start with a Quark, like sort of that all mountain tool?
I think if you're an ice climber, you're going to appreciate the Nomic.
Yeah, so with that separate handle.
Yeah, totally. Like an actual, like real steep ice tool. I just think they're just so good.
Yep.
And it's not that you can't climb steep ice or hard ice with a Quark. And if you're gonna do alpine climbing as well, maybe this is the way to go.
As like a first tool. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is the all-around option, right? This is probably the first of these tools on the table here that was designed and built. So it really is kind of like the one do everything tool. It's a little heavy for summer mountaineering. It's a little less, specific for really steep ice. But people have climbed really steep ice with a Quark for sure. There's no doubt about that, right? So is it the tool or is it the tool or the carpenter, right? But I mean, that said, like if you're climbing steep ice, you will appreciate the Nomic for sure. There's no doubt.
And then looking at the opposite end of the spectrum for like mountaineering.
Okay.
Then what's the first tool you reach for or would buy if you're getting into it?
For mountaineering, depends on what you're up to.
Like walking on snow, you might have a 40 plus degree snow slope that you have to travel on.
Yeah, the Sumtech's a really nice all-around tool. It's a little bit too long to really climb vertical ice with, but you could do, alpine ice. It's whatever, 70 degrees or lower angle stuff. It's still long enough to like use like a cane.
Yeah, like get through a short shoot if you're on a mountain objective that has a
Yep.
small like ice or snow shoot.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel a little guilty because I have so many tools, but I basically have a pair of gullies, a pair of Nomics, and a
Yep.
pair of what's the thing called? The gully Nomic and
Sumtech.
thank you. It's too late in the day.
Yeah.
And I have, I have all three of those tools here, and I have all three of those tools stashed in Chamonix. So just having the quiver allows me to do those things in both places without carting them back and forth.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and if you were going to go for a 2 pairs of tool quiver, what would your choices be?
a pair of Nomics, and then
And for those that aren't watching the video, Silas is like quickly scanning back and forth between his tools, trying to make a decision.
if I could buy 4 tools,
Yep.
I would buy a pair of Nomics, and I would buy a gully and a Sumtech.
Okay.
I think that would be my choice.
And if you could only have 3, which one would you cut?
Probably the gully.
Okay.
That's kind of like a summer rock,
Yep.
like approaching a little bit of snow to get to rock, or, Matterhorn style thing where you're mostly on a rock ridge with a little bit of snow. But when you really want like a mountaineering tool, you kind of want like a real axe.
Yeah, it's the axe for when you're not really planning to use the axe too
Yeah.
much.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, kind of check the box.
And then I don't know if you're going to have opinions on this or not, but we've talked within Petzl and sort of the different categories there. There's also a bunch of different companies that make tools.
Mhm.
Let's just looking at ice climbing tools. We like Camp has the Extreme, Petzl has the Nomic or the Ergo, Black Diamond has the Hydra, and Gravel has, is it the North Machine? No, it's not the North Machine. It's the Dark Machine, I think.
Yeah, there's a
For
few
their, like,
machines that get mixed
Yeah,
up.
for their technical climbing tools. Do you have a preference in those?
I climbed on Black Diamond tools for decades. Well, maybe not decades, maybe 15 years.
Mhm.
And then I got a pair of Nomics, and I was like, maybe I don't suck at this. Like literally,
Yeah.
I feel like I jumped from like a 5'8" ice climber to a 5'10" ice climber on like the first season of using Nomics. And largely we can get into like, talking about picks as well, but like a skinnier, different angle pick makes such a difference. That's
Yep.
when the pure ice picks were just coming out. Or I guess they were ice picks when I first had Nomics, and then I got the pure ice pick after. Man, it's just such a game changer. Like, I'm not a huge guy. I'm like 170 pounds now, but just that, like using Black Diamond Cobras and Vipers for so long and swinging that tool above my head and getting reasonably good at it over 15 years, I would still just break a lot of ice.
Yep.
And I know some people that are really good with those tools. I just couldn't quite make it happen.
Yep.
It just wouldn't work for me. So the Nomic, I feel like, is a much more natural swing for most
Mhm.
people. And if I just hand a pair of tools to somebody off the street, they'd probably be able to climb harder, faster with the Nomic than.
Sure.
And the Extremes are similar, like just those really skinny picks.
Yep. Yeah, I found that the Extreme has a really like fluid swing. So you don't have to swing. I find you don't have to swing quite as hard, and like just a wrist flick is often enough
Totally.
for me. And there's something about the Extreme like feels a little more fluid to me.
Yeah.
And then the Hydra. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the Petzl Pure Ice, I think, was kind of modeled in some ways after the Extreme pick because it was so skinny. That was like very revolutionary pick design that they came up with for sure.
Yeah, and then the Hydra was new last winter, and I got a pair, and the thing that I found with them is they do feel more stable in less stable placements and I compared them against the Camp Extreme. I have not compared them side to side with the Nomic, but they do feel a little bit more stable in less stable placements.
Yeah,
but
the Nomic will flex some for sure.
I find that I do overdrive the Hydra more readily too, and it might be just because of how they tapered the pick. It takes a little bit more work frequently for me to get out of the ice. And then we can dive in because we've been talking picks. Like there's sort of 3 categories of picks where we have pure ice, alpine mixed, and then dry.
Yep. And depending on the company, they've got even subcategories of those categories, but I'm totally with you. And boy, on real just ice, those skinny, thin picks make such a huge difference. It's unbelievable. It's like an absolute game changer for sure. Now, if you're going to do any mixed climbing and you're going to bend or break those picks much more easily and dull them up, but boy, when you're climbing ice, pure ice, they are really exceptional. And just getting good at sharpening picks as well is like a whole nother art form in and of itself that takes time and practice. But if you can take what's a pick cost now? $60? You can take a $60 pick that's been used a little bit and ruin it with one sharpening, or help it like last another month or two, depending on how you sharpen it.
Yep. Yeah, and I like the thin ice picks for like thin ice, but if you're gonna have any rock, or like some people, like I got yelled at this for when I was borrowing a friend's tools early on. I was like moving the handle side to side instead of up and down to release it. And he was like, "Stop. Do not bend or break my picks."
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the ice quality or conditions that I really ruin picks with is like when the ice is popped off and delammed, and so you punch through the thin ice into air and then hit rock.
Yep.
Because you're still driving the pick pretty hard, but you're punching through that soft ice, or with snow too, and just slamming the rock. If you're just dry tooling and kind of scratching and torquing and pulling, maybe not so bad. But yeah, that thin ice is where things really get.
Yeah, where you sort of like hook the beak on the tip of the pick.
For sure. Or you make it go like this.
Yeah.
Can like hook around corners now.
Yeah. When we're talking ice rack, we were also talking like leash versus leashless climbing. And so where do you choose to use a leash with your tool, and when do you not?
Yeah, I have a pair of bungee leashes on me all the time, and I might not have them like hooked up to my harness. I usually have a little tiny locker that I use on the harness side, so I can take it when I get to a belay. If my ice tools are bungeed, I can take the locker off my waist. It could be a non-locker too, off my waist and clip to an anchor. So I'll use that to secure my tools at the belay as well. So I always have a bungee tether with me with a carabiner on my end of it, and I'll just choose to use it depending on, to be honest, like how scared I am, like how I think the ice quality is going to be. The thinner it is, or the more mixed it is, without the ability to leave a tool somewhere, I might need to use tethers more than I mean, if it's cragging, maybe not. But if the protection's skinny and thin, there's not good hooks to leave the tool, and I need my tool there for security, I'm probably going to use leashes. And then ice climbing that might be run out or really fracturey or like candled and unpredictable, like I might shear a tool or blow a foot or something, I'm more likely to use tethers for sure. Or the gear is sparse, more likely to use them.
When somebody's first starting ice climbing, do you prefer to start them with or without tethers?
When they're I generally, same thing. I have them have a pair. I might even have them clipped to their belay loop, like bandolier style, over their head. They can pull it off and put it on like even mid-pitch. I'll try to not have them use the tethers until they need them. So either they're going to drop a tool and we're going to be hosed, or they'll drop a tool on somebody or something like that, or into a creek or something. Then I'll have them use the tethers. But I am more worried about newer people blowing a foot, falling, whatever, with tools that aren't super well planted, and then bungeeing a tool into their own face because they fell on it. That's something I worry a lot with top roping, whether they're following a multi-pitch route or just top rope cragging. The one solution to that is that you can have them clip their side of the bungee with that carabiner, not into the belay loop, but just onto the rope. So then they can fall 15 feet with a rope stretch or whatever. The tools are still attached to the rope, but they don't pull on them. That can be one good solution. Of course, they're down there now with no tools, but at least they're not having a tool stuck in their head.
Yep. Then you just get to go recover the tools.
Yeah, totally.
Right on. We talked leashes, no leashes, and starting with them. We talked mountain axes having an adze versus a hammer, and generally preferring an adze on those mountaineering axes for chopping steps, and you can always use the head of the tool as a hammer if needed. Do you have a preference on hammers for your like hammer versus adze for your in between like mountain axe use, like your Quark or your Nomic when you go into more alpine settings?
I think maybe universally across the board on steep ice tools and mountaineering tools, I would rather have a hammer just because it's easier to pack. I'm not going to take a tool in the face, steep ice climbing. and I can hammer a piton. But what I'm losing there is the ability to dig a T-trench, which is a pretty big deal if you're on a glacier and someone pops in the hole and it's your job to rescue them. So I debate that a lot. And my tool, like my SumTech in the Alps, has an adze on it. And if I need to have something to hammer a tool, I'll bring something else as well. Or I might have my client have a tool with a hammer on it that I can steal once in a while.
Yeah. Or do you bring just like a Yosemite, like piton hammer ever, or do you prefer using your tools?
If I'm mixed climbing in the winter, I got this I have like a regular wall hammer, but they're a little too heavy really to carry all the time. So I got this like old CMI like piece of junk that's pretty light, but I've got a little bungee on here that I use for mixed climbing in the winter. Pretty light, still does a good job if I'm actually steep ice climbing or mixed climbing, because those curved tools, like trying to hammer a piton with this is just an act of frustration. It just absolutely sucks. It's possible, but it just sucks.
And the other thing to consider for people with the lighter tools is I and friends have broken the hammers off of the gullies as well.
Yeah, I believe it.
Those tools are not the best for hammering pitons if you know you're going to.
Yeah, it's not really a hammer.
Yeah.
Totally. No, when you really need a hammer, you want a hammer.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if there is anything else we want to hit when it comes to tools that we haven't. Pick weights.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a golf club, right? Like head speed's a thing. So depending how big you are, how hard the ice climbing you're doing is, how hard the surface of the ice is, and how fast you can swing whichever tool you have, you should consider some sort of weight in the head, whether that's a hammer, a blank, pick weights, something like that, right? So the tools, like the Petzl tools I use now, have a smaller hammer. The head overall has gotten lighter. So I use pick weights, and these pick weights are even tapered, which is amazing for slotting them in cracks. It's like you're putting an offset nut in the crack and hanging on it, right? So it can be both a climbing tool and a weight tool for just swinging the tool as well. But I don't know how many people I've talked to, like with those extremes, that I've watched them swing those tools with no head weights. I'm like, you need some head weights. Like you're swinging the tool as fast as you can, which is pretty quick, but it's bouncing off. Like you need some weight up there.
Yeah, especially if you get like cold, hard ice, like say Silverton, middle of winter or Canada.
Yeah, totally. And there's even like where the angle of where this hits and where the weight is, the fact that it's out here on the pick with the Petzls is actually different than if it were a big hammer. Like I used to have like the first Black Diamond Cobras, and so it's more stable here. And it's also just driving that pick home better than the hammer being above and kind of behind and above the tip of the pick. It just works differently. So yeah, I would definitely consider some sort of pick weights.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the interesting things, it's a video I remember watching years ago, but it was like a woman who went climbing with another woman for the first time, and she was like, I can tell you were taught by men because you're just wailing away at the ice as well. And so I'd argue it to like go lighter initially, and as you start to fine tune, because swinging for the fences is going to tire you out too.
Totally. Yeah, having a light tool, but having the weight where you want it is really important.
Yeah. Awesome. And then anything else for ice tools and or axes?
I tend to have a couple pairs of picks that I'm using throughout the season sometimes, and I'm a cheap Yankee, and so I might not use brand new picks early season. I might use like last year's like tail end picks to start the season when things are really, really thin and I'm more likely to hit rock. And then I might swap them out if I'm going to go do like some big trip to, Canmore or something with really thick funker ice. I might put brand new, like really sharp picks on. That'll just do better when it's funker. So just kind of having a quiver of picks that you can choose from, or a couple different tools with different quality picks on, newness wise, can probably over the long term save you some money.
Yep. Awesome.
And increase your performance and security.
Yeah. Makes you feel better because you have sharp picks that are going to drive well.
Yes, totally.
Welcome to the after show for the discussion between Silas and I on selecting ice tools and ice axes. The purpose of these Mountain Locker episodes is to just give a little bit more information so that you can make the right choice when it comes to selecting these pieces of gear, because honestly, I've spent way too much money like picking whatever was hot and cool in the marketing or the newest piece of equipment for that year, instead of going and doing what I now know is best when selecting a new piece of equipment, which is trying them out and demoing them beforehand. And so when it comes to ice tools in particular for ice climbing, the absolute recommendation I have is to go try a variety of tools at one of the ice festivals that happens, or one of the events that happens throughout the winter. There's amazing tool, like Silas talked a lot about Petzl tools, and that's what he has decided he really likes. And the one recommendation I do have is for a lot of these, often going with one company's ecosystem is going to be the most efficient way, because you have interchangeable heads and different parts on the tool or the ice axe that you're using, so you don't have to buy as many extraneous accessories. But absolutely go try them out. Like, for example, I like the way that the Black Diamond tool, the Hydra, sticks and feels stable in the ice. But for ice climbing, I love the way the Camp X-Dream swings. And so, like, I have different preferences depending on the type of climbing that I am doing. All that to say, like, go try them out is the absolute best way. Same thing with skis, snowboards, different pieces of climbing gear. Cannot tell you how many times I've bought something based on the marketing, too many times, and then ended up selling it shortly thereafter because I just didn't like it when I actually got my hands on it. That's all I got for the aftershore portion. I am going to continue to put these out unless y'all say you don't like them. So first, I'm going to ask to go give the show a rating and or a comment or a review. If you haven't, please 5 stars if you're liking it. And if you don't like it, then shoot me a note and let me know what I can improve, because I'm always looking to get better, and feedback is rare. And I love getting feedback on how I can make these episodes for the Mountain Locker and the rest of the podcast a little bit better every time. Second is, if you like this episode and the other ones, just like I said in the pre-show, please share it with at least one other person that you think will find it interesting. That is the way that this thing will continue to grow, and has been growing the most. The episodes that get the most listens and the most feedback are the ones that get shared through other social media platforms, such as your Instagrams, or through a direct share with one individual. So please share the episodes that you find interesting. Finally, the views and opinions expressed in this episode and any of the other episodes are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the stances, opinions of any entities they may represent. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.